go. Here's a small consolation prize. Like, you traded in all of your tickets, and we gave you a small wristband that isn't even that comfortable, and it says, suck these nuts on it. You know, like, it doesn't do much.
I make the money, man. I rule the nickels. The game's mine. I deal the cards.
Alright, howdy howdy. It's patch notes time. This is kind of bittersweet, honestly, because this might be the last regular patch notes that we get for Legends of Runeterra for a very long time. It's cool. I'm happy. The meta's gonna get shaken up a little bit. It's kind of sad though. Like, it's one of, if not the last patch notes that we're gonna recognize as traditional patch notes. But I haven't looked at them. I've played a few games, so I've seen a couple of the changes. But for the majority of the changes, this is brand new to me. So let's just go through them. So right off the bat, interesting. So let's actually look at what they've done. So for this balance patch, our team had a couple of we were trying to accomplish. That's hilarious. Their English is so bad. For this balance patch, our team had a couple of blank we were trying to accomplish. Lesser Elder Dragon's Wrath, contain the spread of curses, put the Samira back into plunder, revive the Shuriman Empire, disrupt the meta and increase quality of life, and spice up some areas in the Path of Champions. Updates will be live February 7th by 11 a.m. Well, it's the 9th now, so that's true. And exactly as I thought. Ah, I feel so fucking smart. I feel so smart. Ah, yes. They took away the health. Elder Dragon's Origin has been an enormous boon to his decks, easily outpacing the deck building cost of his region. We chose to reduce the health buffs across the board to reduce the amount of survivability and focus the boons more tightly to offense and defensive roles. Fantastic. That's great. They made sign-in cost 7 now. I think that's very fair. It might be a dead card now. Some of the followers in common Elder decks, blah, 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 carrying too much weight. Sometimes outside of Elder decks too. Lowering the power, blah, blah, blah. Larger cost, blah. Okay, yeah, I like that. Ah, they reduced its power by 2. That actually really hurts the one of my favorite decks, Riven Morgana. This hurts a lot of decks. But it's still, I don't know, it's kind of dead. Losing that 2 attack power, I wish they had done what I thought they were going to do and reduce its health by 1. That might have been too much though. That, like, it's really neat to have this, like, super powerful but really risky card, you know? Like, hey, I'm going to play this 8 attack challenger, but it's only got 3 health, so you can find ways of removing it quite easily. But if you're not able to remove this card, you're going to pay for it. I like that. I think that's really cool gameplay. But it looks like they're just trying to kill the card, basically. 6 attack, a 6/4 for 6 mana, even with the deal 2. Like, unless you're playing a deck that specifically benefits very well and synergizes heavily with the deal 2 into the enemy nexus effect, like the elemental play effect, then you're not playing this card anymore. It's kind of a dead card. I don't know, maybe Riven Morgana can still play it. I don't know. It is significantly less powerful now, though. It is, I mean, 6/4 for 6 mana, that's just, those stats are trash. Those stats are trash. It's got trash stats now. That's sad. But hey, it is what it is. Sad to see you go, Enraged Fire Spitter. But it makes sense. It was very powerful. Saw it all over the place. We want Morgana to stay useful as a generalist champ and blah blah blah, blah 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 blah, blah 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 blah. Let's make her cost 10 times instead of 8 times. Yeah, I think this is fair. And I already talked about it, so I'm just going to move on. Suppression. Stops all spell casting. Stops all non-curse spell casting. Interesting. While suppression spell prevention was an exciting synergy with other curses, it also prevented counterplay in deck building. With this change, a spell-light deck is much less impacted by suppression, making suppress more of a metagame choice than a force multiplier on any curse. You can't play spells other than curses. Alright. So this is really gonna show up in decks, like if you're playing a deck like, I don't know, like Elites. And let's say they play Morgana to counter your Garen. You play Garen, they play Morgana. I don't know how this is gonna work out exactly. But it's good. It's good. This is a good change. I think this is healthy for the game. This is gonna be good. I like this. Mage Seeker Inquisitor. This is a fantastic change. This was necessary. Suppression's most popular generator has been a meta-defining force, offering a potent effect without giving up much on stats. This change should make the Inquisitor more of a question for Demacia decks than an automatic inclusion. Yes. Brilliant. I think that this card is kind of dead. Like, I feel like they could have just gotten rid of the toughness from him, and he would have been okay, but they went ahead and gave him -1 attack as well. So that's kind of, like, I don't know if he's dead, but he's pretty close to it. Like, only having 2 power instead of 3 power is a huge break point. He's kinda dead. He's kinda dead. Oh my lord! They killed Hate Spike. Hate Spike has always been crucial to Evelyn's game plan, but it's also been doing a lot of work for several other Shadow Isle champions who then end up taking Evelyn's spot. We realized that kill an ally to deal 3 is a card we definitely want to exist, but the Husk bonus was feeling pretty free. With this change, Evelyn gets the current Hate Spike she needs, and everyone else gets a solid, but not quite as variable, removal option. Okay, it's not dead. It's still good. The initial impact has washed over me, and I'm now in a much calmer state. I don't know. I don't know. I think that's fine. Some of the time, the Husk would just be completely useless. A good portion of the time, the Husk would be completely useless. Like, it's turn 2. You played the 2/0/1s. You block the 2/1 and you kill their 3/2. So they don't get any damage through. Not getting the extra 1 health on your 3-drop the next turn doesn't really matter. Like, the only keyword that actually does anything in that instance is Quick Attack. Like, there's no Deathless Husk. Quick Attack is the only one that really does anything, and the only thing that does is get you to deal 4 extra damage to the enemy Nexus. And whenever you're up against an aggro deck, like the situation that you're most likely in whenever you've gone for a play like that, it's not really useful to be dealing 4 damage to the enemy Nexus because you're more worried about your own life total. You're not going to race down the enemy aggro deck. They're going to race you down. So, like, even in the best case scenario, it's not that great to get the extra 1 health. I suppose it could matter if you're running the Camivoran Soldier and you get a 3-4 instead of a 3-3. That could allow you to block a 3-3 or a 3 damage unit. 3 damage units aren't that common in aggressive decks, though. Usually you're seeing a lot of 2-1s, in which case a 3 health unit is perfectly fine. I think this is fine. I think you're still going to see Hate Spike everywhere. I think that Hate Spike is still definitely a very strong card. Yumi! She's definitely not dead. She's definitely still going to be a very potent force in the meta. -1 health is, I think, very reasonable, and it's going to make it a little bit easier to deal with her, and I think that's perfect. I think this is the perfect change for Yumi. It's just a little bit easier to deal with her, and that's it. It's just a little bit easier to deal with her now. I think that's perfect. I think that's exactly what she needed. It's not going to kill the elusive decks, but it is going to make it, like, it's probably going to change their win rates by, like, 5 to 10%, if that much. I'm not the greatest at the numbers game, but that's about how much of a difference I feel like it's going to make. So that's pretty cool. Elder Dragon is a 12/12 now. Hey, that's pretty cool. While we wanted to tone back the power of Elder's origin, we wanted Elder himself to be a huge threat. So we're giving him more direct power. We also tried to buff his level 2, but he said he wanted to keep his nice rounded stats. So on level up, he's still a 12/12? It doesn't matter what his stats are. Like, this is pretty irrelevant, you know? Like, what's the difference between a 10/10 and a 12/12? You know? Like, he's gonna be tough. He's really a 13/13. Although now he is a 13/10. So what's the difference between a 13/10 and a 15/12? He still has tough. This doesn't matter. This really doesn't matter that much. This isn't gonna change much of anything. Yeah, it's a nice, like, here you go. Dink, dink. You know, like, it's very minor. It doesn't really do much. Consolation prize. That's all that is. They gave Aladdis 1 extra health. That's very nice. I don't think it's gonna do much, because 6 health to 7 health isn't a big breaking point. It kind of is, because now you don't have to deal 3 twice. You have to deal 3 and then 4. Dealing 3 twice is relatively easily done. But dealing 3 and then 4 is significantly harder. So that's pretty significant. That's actually a pretty significant change. Aladdis tried to be gallant about getting nerfed with the Dragon Boons change, but Demasia's nicest dragon didn't deserve quite so harsh a hit. So they're trying to keep dragon decks relevant, even though he got nerfed from the Dragon Boons being nerfed. They're trying to keep dragon decks like Shyvana, Elder Dragon relevant. Okay, so this isn't really a buff. It's just kind of like a keep it the same. It's a buff, but only in the sense that it's keeping it from getting nerfed too hard. Because whenever you play this, you get a Dragon Boon. So whenever you played it, it would be an 8/7. Most of the time. And so now it's going to be an 8/7 most of the time, still. So it's the same. It didn't get nerfed because of the Dragon Boons getting nerfed. So that's cool. Adroit Artificer. This is huge. Going from 3 health to 4 health is a huge boon. That's great. I don't know if it's gonna be enough to make this card matter. Kind of the reason that this card doesn't see play isn't because it was easy to remove. It didn't see play and doesn't see play because there's not enough of a package surrounding it to enable it to see play. Like, there's just not a really strong plunder deck. At least none that people have figured out. Let's see what they say. A droid artificer tends to arrive with a lot of fanfare, but her Wait, that's a woman? Oh my god. I'm sexist. But her limited presence on the board made her a very feast or famine card. With a little extra health, she should feel better to play even if the plundering opportunities are limited. They should have made her a 5/5. They should have made her a 5/5. 5/5 with an upside. She does have Challenger, though. That makes sense. Okay, 5/4 with Challenger. Okay, that's fine. I didn't see Challenger at first. I forgot about that. Ooh. Okay, so this is pretty cool. It's pretty relevant. Going from 3 health to 4 health is a pretty big switch, because there's a lot of deal 3 damage cards out there, but there's not a lot of deal 4 damage cards out there. Dealing 4 damage in this game is significantly harder to do than deal 3. So this is pretty relevant. There's also a lot of 3 attack damage units, and there's significantly less 4 attack damage units than there are 3 damage units. So this is a really good buff for this card. But, as I said before, the package, the supporting cards that surround this card, that are activated by this card, the cards that generate value from this card, still aren't there. There just isn't really a strong enough deck to support this card, so it's still not going to see very much play. But it's cute that they're trying to make it cute, so that's nice. That's cool. This is interesting, though. This is really interesting. Only captures if the unit has less than 6 power. Now it always captures. I think this is an underestimated card. A 2-mana 2/3 that on block or am blocked this round, capture my enemy. Oh my god, they made Kaisa a 5/5? Wow. Okay, but let's not get distracted. Poacher's restriction made him an inconsistent surprise option for ambush decks. By amping him up, it not only gives Shurima another viable removal option, which is humongous for them, it should make all ambush units a little more threatening since they could poach you at any moment. That's big. It still costs 5 total mana to do it, though, and it only has 3 health. So depending on what deck you're up against, you're likely not going to be able to keep that unit captured for very long. But then again, it depends on what kind of deck you're up against. Like if you're up against Karma P and Z, then yeah, you're not going to get to keep that unit for more than a turn or 2 at the most. But let's say you're up against elites. You'll probably get to keep that Garen or the Jarvan. Let's just say the best case scenario. Let's keep the Jarvan or the Garen. You'll get to keep that card for potentially the rest of the game. So that's pretty spicy. That is pretty spicy. That's nice. And I think the best thing about it is actually this last little bit here. It should make ambush units a little bit more threatening since they could poach you at any moment. That's the real power here. Like, everyone is going to have to consider the possibility of the bush unit being a blimp pack poacher. So anytime your opponent has 3 mana up and they have a brush unit on the board, there's a chance that it could be the blimp pack poacher. And you're going to have to consider whether or not you want to attack with your big unit and get it captured or not. have it potentially get captured. So that's big. That's a good change. I like this because you never saw this card at all. I've literally never seen this card in play. I didn't even know it existed, to be honest with you. So it's good that they're buffing it. That's good. Kaisa is getting a +1/+1 buff. That's fucking crazy. That's interesting. Will this save Kaisa from her current place of unviability? I don't know. Kaisa's power has fluctuated since her release, and while we don't want to make her quite as overbearing as she was, we do think she could use a little oomph. Little more oomph. The extra stats should give her back some of the survivability she needs to improve her KDA. Get it? Because she's in the band called KDA, and that's also kill death assist. Ah! I don't know. You'll definitely see a lot of people on the ladder trying out Kaisa again. I'm not sure if this is going to matter that much. Going from 4 health to 5 health isn't that huge of a deal. And going from 4 attack to 5 attack isn't that huge of a deal. It does feel quite nice. Going from a 4/4 to a 5/5 feels quite nice. That's my impression. It feels quite nice. It's not bad. It's pretty good. So going from a 6/6 to a 7/7, that's also not a huge jump. That doesn't really matter that much. Okay, yeah, that's nice. You'll see a lot of Kaisa in the beginning stages after this patch is released. But I'm not sure if she's going to stick around. Tomb Raider Barbara. Tomb Raider Barbara should be a solid support for any Shurima deck willing to flood the board, but her low health has kept her from the full-scale dream. With a little extra boost, we hope she can steal some games as well as our hearts. But see, they didn't really change the problem with Barbara. They gave her a little bit extra survivability, and that's great. She doesn't die to Mystic Shot now. She has 3 health instead of 2, which is humongous. That helps a ton. Don't get me wrong. That's a huge buff. That's very significant. But it doesn't change the fact that each round, the first time another ally dies, you get a lucky find. You can only get 1 lucky find a turn. And that's just not powerful enough. You should be able to get 3 or 4 or 5 lucky finds in a turn. Because if you're trading down your entire board and all you get is 1 lucky find, that's nothing. It's like, here you go, here's a small consolation prize. Like, you traded in all of your tickets, and we gave you a small wristband that isn't even that comfortable, and it says, suck these nuts on it. You know, like, it doesn't do much. So it's great to see that they are providing more options for deck building potential, but like, they're not really providing any more deck building potential. Like, they're being political. Like, they're paying lip service to the idea of a Tomb Raider Barbara deck, but they're not actually supporting it wholeheartedly, you know? So it's a good change. And I don't know if I would actually want there to be an aggressive Shurima package out there. Like, do I want there to be a meta in which Barbara is a big threat? Do I want that to be a thing? I don't know if I want that to be a thing. Maybe Riot is doing us a favor by not buffing this card up. I don't know. Perhaps. But let's move on. Wow, what a buff! Okay. Nyla's been looking less than joyful lately, but she's still a very solid card. We think this nudge isn't a lot, but should help push her share her joy a little more often. That's the second major fuck up in this. But yeah, okay. So this nudge is nothing. This nudge does nothing. Nyla's in a good place though. Like she's not like I really honestly don't know what they're talking about. Like she's been in a decent place lately. I think. Like you can still play Jan and Nyla and get good games. So I don't know. Maybe they're looking at the statistics and the statistics are telling them that Nyla is a little bit underperforming compared to her peers. Perhaps that's what's going on. Alright, moving on. Udyr becomes a 5-5 instead of a 5-4. I don't really like Udyr, which is weird because I'm all for buffing up your guys to be big buff boys. Like, I love the idea of buffing your units to be big buff boys. But I've never liked Udyr. Udyr has never really been my cup of tea, if you will. So, like, I just... God, the school bus just arrived and all the kids are about to be getting off from school. I should probably take a small break. I'm going to stop recording for the moment. Alright, kids are gone. Let's keep on moving. Bushwhack Trap gives vulnerable this round into Grant Vulnerable. This card's been a bit of a bait since release, so we wanted to try and make it a more realistic option for transformed decks. It should also make it feel less painful to set off the trap on rounds when you're missing the attack token. Yeah. When I'm summoned, or the first time an ally transforms each round, grant the weakest enemy vulnerable. I think that's going to be huge. I think that makes this card a playable card. I think that's going to be humongous. General of the Dunes. Daybreak, or when you activate another Daybreak, grant the weakest enemy vulnerable. While the General does a solid job as backup board control for Daybreak, he struggles to trade profitably on his own. With extra power, he's more likely to make an impact when he has the chance to connect. Sure. I mean, it doesn't hurt to have a little bit extra power. I don't really see this being a humongous difference. It makes him a well-statted unit with a positive effect. That's Daybreak for you. And he's an elite? Oh, man. He's an elite. Okay. I can see some cool elite synergy going on with this guy. Elite Daybreak synergy. I don't know if I actually can or not. No, yeah, the dudes. The 2-2 dudes. Aren't those guys elites too? The ones that draw more of themselves? I'm pretty sure those guys are elites as well. This is cool. I'm happy with this. More ways to play elites. I'm happy about that. That's awesome. Moving on. They buffed Nami. Interesting. Nami's rework moved her into a more sustainable direction, but she's been relegated to the depths of the meta. We want to start giving some power back as we better understand this shape, and hopefully get her to a sustainable level of power. What does she do now? When you play a spell, grant +1 attack to the weakest other ally that isn't immobile. You've played 5 spells with an allied Nami in play. Okay, that's huge. That's one less spell you have to play. That's going to make a big difference for Nami. You're definitely going to see some Nami players in the meta on the ladder. You're definitely going to see a lot more Nami now. Okay, this doesn't really matter that much. Thank God. I thought that they were going to make it a big buff. But this is if you have all of the world runes, 1 cost to draw 1. For Rise decks, getting Rise in play means that you are more likely to draw the delves you need. But if that Rise dies before winning, it also means you're left feeling blue at having to spend a bunch of mana to find the next Rise. Arguably, that's exactly how it should be. This change shouldn't be impactful in most Rise games, but will lessen some of his most frustrating in-game situations. That's fine. I'm fine with this change. Doesn't really affect most games. Only in niche scenarios will this actually even matter. So, go for it, Riot. Good shit, I guess. Oh my god, they made it a plunder! Oh shit! Okay. Okay. Samira's recent nerfs left her plunder archetype absent, so we wanted to give back some of her power while leaning into the plunder reactivation effects that make her followers unique. We started by giving Samira herself a bit more style, then changed Dandy's design to give the deck a dreamier finish. Okay, when I'm summoned or strike, create a flare in hand, or if you already have one, reduce its cost by 1. Plunder or strike, create a flare if you don't already have one. And the flare goes from 2 cost to 1 cost. But they're changing Dashing Dandy as well. Old is a 3 cost, 1/4 plunder, grant me 3+ attack. New, 4 cost, 2/4 plunder, double my power. So he was a 3 cost 4/4 with overwhelm. If you can buff his power in hand, that makes a relevant change. He's less powerful. They nerfed him. That's just a nerf. They made him cost 4 mana for like no reason. Am I understanding this correctly? He used to be 3 cost, 1/4, plunder, grant me +3 attack, which would make him a 4/4 with overwhelm for 3 cost. Now he costs 4, he is a 2/4, his plunder is double my power. And since he has 2 power, that would make him a 4 cost, 4/4 with overwhelm. Okay, but when you reactivate it, you get an 8/4. Okay, that's sick. That's a finisher. That's okay. That's what you're gonna do with this deck. And that's only with 1 reactivation. Okay. Okay, that's sick. So Dashing Dandy is a true finisher in this deck now. That's awesome. That's awesome. Hell yeah. So we're gonna see Samira. I'm definitely gonna try out Samira, because I love the whole plunder, reactivate plunder to get value kind of gameplay. I find that to be very fun. So that's definitely a deck I'm gonna try. That's cool as fuck. Hell yeah. Okay, old only advances if champ levels while in play. Advances for each time an ascended leveled this game. Interesting. With explorers running around, we wanted to give Sundisk decks a way to recover, if they're willing to pay the cost of reviving the disc or running extras. Start of game, summon one of me from your deck if it's all Shuriman. Countdown 25, restore the Sundisk. I advance 9 rounds for each time an ascended ally has leveled up this game. So they don't have to be in hand or on the field in order to get the buff or the advancements. That's pretty significant. That's very significant. And with the recent discovery regarding Renekton in Shurima, in Mono Shurima, I think Mono Shurima is going to be like fantastic. Although it doesn't really matter. Like, I guess it matters in a situation where you have lost your buried Sundisk, and I don't know how you would revive the Sundisk necessarily, but if you're playing more than one, then in the situation where your Sundisk is destroyed, and then you level up your Azir or your Renekton, let's just say you level up both of them, and then you find your other buried Sundisk, and let's just say that both of your units have been removed from the board. You no longer have your Azir or your Renekton, which is a likely scenario. You would still get the 18 countdown points on the buried Sundisk. So that's kind of niche, but an interesting dynamic presents itself here. That's kind of cool. I think that's awesome. I think that's really cool. I think that really helps, like, in the situation where Buried Sun Disk gets destroyed. I like that. Yes! Yes! Oh, thank God. Okay, so they killed it, basically. Like, now it's kind of useless. Now that it doesn't retain buffs, it is kind of a useless card now. It doesn't have that ramping up of buffs gameplay anymore, so it's not going to see any gameplay anymore. Reducing the cost by 1 isn't going to do enough. I don't think. It's it's going to be a meme card. It was a meme card the entire time, but it had like this weird interaction that made it more than just a meme card. And now that they've removed the weird interaction, now it is only a meme card. Rest in peace, Valley of Imitation. Predict. Oh, predict no longer shuffles after predicting. And it's not specific to Time Trick. This is for all predictions, if I'm understanding this correctly. Predict effect. Old prediction would shuffle after predicting. New prediction does not shuffle after predicting. That's interesting. That is really interesting. That is really, really interesting. The shuffle during predict is a weird rule that doesn't come up often, but does mean that predict fights with mysterious portals and disables flash bombs. This rule change should make things work more predictably. You can use mysterious portals and predictions in a deck together. That should open up some pretty interesting deck concepts. I like this change. It makes it a little bit more. It's kind of a nerf against Teemo decks, because obviously if you're shuffling the deck, then you're shuffling around where the Teemo shrooms are, and that usually is a benefit to the player who has the deck. Generally, it's better to shuffle the deck around. So that's kind of a nerf, but it's not really a nerf. I like this. I don't know. I'm kind of nervous about this. Something feels wrong about this. I don't know. It's a strange change. I wonder what motivated them to do this. Huh. Okay. Master Yi has struggled to find his flow at 3 cost, so we wanted to try shifting him down the curve. You'll still need to protect him to build up his late game power, but this change should let you sneak him out safely more often. He still has the same amount of health. He's got 1 less attack power, but he still builds attack power. And he only costs 2 mana. This is a huge buff. This is humongous. This is a straight up buff. This is not a change. This is a buff. This is a huge buff to Master Yi. Not only do you get him out a turn earlier, so you're getting 1 more cost reduction on your spells, but also you're getting 1 more turn to deal damage with Master Yi. Okay, very interesting. I like that. This kind of is... It reminds me of the changes they made to Lucian not too long ago, where they took him... I believe they made him from a 2 mana 3/2 into a 1 mana 2/1. And that was a great change for him, although you still don't see him in play very often at all. I see Master Yi every once in a while, and he has the potential to be very strong. The cost reduction aspect of Master Yi is, like, I've gotten blown out of games because of 0 mana syncopations. Like, it's very possible for Master Yi to come out ahead and then just blow out the game because of one 0 cost spell. You know, like if you're not able to remove the Yi, then he just gets so many discounts that it's hard to keep up. So that's cool. I'm excited to see what this brings into the meta. That's going to be cool. And last but not least, Divine Whirlwind. While the changes to Divine Whirlwind wind down Janna's meta dominance, it also pulled out the deck's primary method of reach, and had more of an impact than we had hoped. We want to try an alternate change now and give back that reach in exchange for a higher cost, which also plays more into the deck's cost reducing strengths. Okay. It went from a 5 cost deal 3 and deal 1 to a 6 cost deal 3 and deal 2 to the Nexus. That's a big nerf. So when you reduce the cost, it's 4 mana instead of 3 mana. That's a huge nerf. You really desperately want this to get cost reduced at least once before you play it. So ideally, you have one of these in hand and you like Miriam it, and then you redraw it a few turns later. I mean, honestly, I took this card out of my Janna Nyla deck already, so this isn't going to affect my Janna Nyla deck very much. But a more traditional, control-oriented Janna Nyla deck does not like this change. This is a straight nerf. The 1 extra damage to the Nexus does make for some interesting applications in the current version of Janna Nyla that I have, which is far more aggressive. Like, I can see myself running 1 or 2 of these in my more aggressive deck, but it costs 6 mana, and there's not that much cost reduction in that deck. It's more focused on drawing cards than it is on reducing the cost of those cards. There's only 1 temple in that deck, for example. So it's still not good enough. Like, it's not that it's not good enough, it's just it doesn't fit in the deck. Like, I'd much rather have, like, if I'm going to be playing a 6 cost card, or rather a 4 cost card, I'd rather be playing Janna, because she deals 2 damage to the board, 2 damage to the Nexus if she gets to attack, and she draws me 2 cards. She updrafts 2 cards, and then draws me 2 cards the next turn, and that's way better than just dealing 2 damage to the enemy Nexus, and dealing 3 to an enemy unit. So this is a nerf. This is a big nerf. Alright, and that's all the changes. That is all the nerfs and buffs and nerfs. Now on to Path of Champion adjustments. Thieves' Tool has been a disappointing power. So they're completely removing it. Who gives a shit? These are pretty neat. Good lord, that's loud. Okay, that's neat. Okay, this is actually really important here. After the February 25th Runeterra Open, tournaments and gauntlets will be put into hibernation. With patch 5.2 planned February 28th, both gauntlets and tournaments will no longer be accessible from the main menu. Ranked queues will continue to be up and supported. Okay, so that means that ranked queues will still be up. We won't be getting any ranked rewards at the end of the seasons, but we're still going to get patch notes, it seems like. That's what they're telling us here. And supported. That's good news, at least. That's not much, but I'm glomming on to any good news that I can get. So that's good. State of the game, blah, blah, blah. Alright, so that's everything. Hope you enjoyed the video. Good luck and have fun out there, y'all, and I'll see you in the next vid.